Obligatory disclaimer up front for those of you seeing this video on TikTok. Recently, the TikTok platform has begun automatically muting my content, so I'm going to point out in advance that all of our videos are on YouTube as well. And because they mute our videos, that's why I'm adding subtitles for this bit. What's up, Fam of Liberty, and everyone else watching this video that's not yet part of the fam for some unfathomable reason that I just can't understand? If you're just coming across the Sons of Liberty platform for the first time, here's a come to Jesus gut check for all of you, since some of y'all see the symbol and the beard and the clickbait title and think, nah. If you're a Donald Trump supporter, go fuck yourself, traitor, and feel free to tongue the crust off my dirty cinnamon ring. Fuck the MAGA cult. Fuck QAnon. Fuck Republican politicians. Fuck Donald Trump. Suck the sweatiest part of my dick after I mow 3 acres in the hot Georgia summer with a push mower. Does that make it clear where I stand? Oh, and for any MAGA cultists watching this video, I just want to say that you're the only group that lives in a constantly benighted universe. I know you don't know what that means, so I just want to say you can quit the cult. It's so much less exhausting when you don't need to pretend that you believe in a lie as a condition of what you think is patriotism. You're a cosplatriot. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of patriotic citizens and military veterans who put their lives on the line for patriotism are over here having fun, being patriots, and not believing in your cult bullshit. Now that we've got all of that out of the way, today's video we're going to talk about North Carolina Lt.Governor Mark Robinson, a black veteran of the United States Army, who is running for NC Governor. This may be a longer video than usual because I'll be talking with several people who used to run in white supremacist circles. Mark Robinson is a hardcore MAGA cultist with a very problematic history of espousing and endorsing wildly racist and wildly violent ideology. He's praised Adolf Hitler and denies that the Holocaust ever happened. He espouses violence against the LGBTQ community and recently said that some folks need killing. You may be familiar with his name thanks to a CNN report that broke last week about Robinson's decade-old comments on an internet porn site. In those comments, Robinson described himself as a black Nazi. I shit you not, this is a real quote. So I'm not going to give a lot of bandwidth or airtime to the dumb shit that Mark Robinson has said. You can look it up for yourself. And if you're a North Carolinian, I strongly encourage you to research the absolutely fucking awful things that this guy has publicly said. I'm also not going to address the claim that it's a political hit piece because it absolutely is. When you're a politician running for the highest office, like say to be the governor of the state, you deserve intense scrutiny because partisan politics aside, this is a position that wields power over some 11 million people and 16 electors. I'm also not going to give much bandwidth to the timing of this information going public. As a former criminal background investigator and as a former member of the intelligence community, I can assure you that something of this particular magnitude and making sure that every loose end is tied up and that every piece of the puzzle is properly oriented, it takes a lot of time. And I respect the man hours that probably went into this, and I imagine that it took months to assemble all the pieces. What I am going to talk about is the veracity of Mark Robinson's claim that he's a black Nazi. Now, obviously, if you know anything about the rise of Nazism in the years leading up to World War II, you know what the Nazi Party is responsible for. And the Nazis didn't just throw Jews into concentration camps and death camps, they also murdered some 3 million Soviet prisoners of war, almost 2 million non-Jewish ethnic Poles, or people from Poland if you're not familiar with the term. They murdered almost 500,000 Romani, or people derogatorily labeled as gypsies. By the way, stop saying gyp as in someone gypped you. It's an ethnic slur aimed at gypsies. Almost 500,000 Serbs were killed by Nazi collaborators. Hundreds of thousands of people with disabilities living in institutions, living in care facilities, tens of thousands of German political opponents and dissidents, tens of thousands of German criminals and something called asocials, almost 2,000 Jehovah's Witnesses, hundreds if not thousands of gay people, bisexual people, or people who were just even accused of being gay, and hundreds of black people were killed by the Nazis. That's right, Nazis murdered black people. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, there were several thousand black people already living in Germany. The Nazi regime harassed and persecuted them because the Nazis viewed black people as racially inferior. Whilst there was no centralized systematic program targeting black people for murder, many black people were imprisoned, forcibly sterilized, and still murdered by the Nazis. Now you may ask yourself, but Big Sarge, how did black people end up in Germany? I mean, I don't know if you know this, but black people are allowed to travel, even before World War I. From 1884 to 1918, Germany controlled 4 colonies in Africa. Togo, which today is Togo and parts of Ghana, Cameroon, or Cameroon and what's now today considered to be parts of Gabon, the Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, Chad, and Nigeria, German Southwest Africa, now called Namibia, and German East Africa, which then consisted of areas known as Tanzania, Burundi, parts of Mozambique, and for a short time, Zanzibar. Plus, black people from North America and South America and the Caribbean also went to Germany, and I'm willing to bet you that a lot of black people who left the United States were like, I'm gonna go to Germany. It's less racist over there. And they would probably be right. Despite Germany's history of anti Semitism and its European belief that colonial white supremacy was the best, black people still did find better economic and educational opportunities, at least for a brief time. There were also black soldiers part of the Allied military occupation of the Rhineland after World War I, like French colonial soldiers from North Africa, for example. And many of them settled down and had families with German women. So, what's this video about? When I was a teenager and a young man, for varying periods, I was what's called a traditional skinhead. Now, before you come for me in the comments, let me state up front that traditional skinheads are absolutely not the same thing as neo-Nazi skinheads or what I call boneheads, which are quote unquote traditionally what people think of when they hear the word skinheads, thanks to Geraldo Rivera getting his ass kicked on his own talk show. The group of skinheads that I hung out with very frequently came into contact with neo-Nazi skinheads. And if you're familiar with the colors that Bloods and Crips wear, it's sort of the same thing exists within the skinhead community. Usually your bootlaces and your bracers or suspenders that you might wear. Remember in a previous video recently that I did where I said part of my heritage was punching Nazis? Well, that wasn't just a nod to my family what fought in World War II. Now, I haven't been a skinhead in a very long time, but it was a thing up until probably around my 30s. The skinhead crew that I was part of had 3 black skinheads, very cool dudes who I'm not going to name. One of them played drums in a band that I was in. So as one of the admins for the Sons of Liberty, I've got a social media network that reaches upwards of several hundred thousands of people, potentially millions, across social media platforms. I put out a call on Facebook looking for people who used to be part of or adjacent to white supremacist groups. Participating with me in making this video are Kia and Rebecca, and I very briefly just asked them a few questions. I want to point out that Kia is an alias, and she agreed to speak only on the condition that we obscure her face due to safety concerns about people from her former life who are still in that lifestyle.
So we are talking with Kia, and Kia, were you a member of a white supremacist organization, or were you like adjacently associated with one?
A little bit of both. Now, I will say that part of it is because my grandfather was in the KKK. A lot of his family are from Kentucky, so that's pretty normal around there. And so I was raised with it, but I also ended up dating a guy in high school that was a racist, and he was very controlling. And eventually I just started hanging out with a bunch of skinheads. Like, I didn't think like they did, but I was afraid to kind of make waves with my boyfriend because he was abusive.
Mhm.
And this is the same person we're talking about as previous.
Right. All right. So we're here with Rebecca, and Rebecca, you were a member of a white supremacist organization, or you were like adjacently associated with one?
I was in that particular group, the 3%. I was an active member. There was another group that I was more adjacent to because I was romantically involved with one of their members. And that they may be connected, but I was an active member, yes.
And approximately how long were you kind of associated with these people?
So I did get put in foster care when I was 10, and that kind of helped me because I got away from like kind of all of my cousins that were racist, and I started having like new ideas about things. But then I met this guy in high school, and it was like just as easy to start blaming black people for my problems and the the Arabs, and that was a big problem in our city at the time. So that
Hmm.
was really easy to jump on.
A significant portion of both your childhood, but also like being a young adult, like past the minor age, you
Right.
spent around this type of organization or these types of people with these mentalities. The organization that you were a part of, that was the Three Percenters, right?
Yes.
In
Yes.
what capacity were you a member? Like just a rank and file grunt kind of person, or
Yeah, I I had attempted to organize meetups and get some community work done because
Mhm.
there seemed to be shared values, and they claim to not be like, no, we're not a white supremacist group. You know, we love all people. We don't see color and blah blah blah. So I, yeah, I know. I,
In what capacity were you like a member of the Three Percenters, and you were?
yeah, so I was only a member for a few months. And in that short period of time, it felt like I made a lot of friends, seemed like that we had shared values. So I attempted to organize the member information and create like an email list, get some community activities together, some mutual aid ideas together, ways we could help the community. And I learned after a while that they didn't really want to get organized.
What got you into the the three percenters? I know you mentioned that the other one was due to a romantic interest, but very briefly, if you want, or if you want to go into more in depth, you can talk about how you got associated with this group.
I come from a conservative Catholic Christian family, right? A Christian Catholic family, obviously, is the same-ish. But conservative Catholic, middle, upper class white family in the South. I'm from Florida, still live here. I went to a Catholic school for 9 years. I believed that this conditioned me to accept certain behaviors as morally right. And my family themselves were never actively political, but they were still, yeah, they're very loving, giving people, but they still come from they're still a product of mid-century patriarchy. I reconnected with a former high school classmate that I had gone through some trauma with in the past, and that we got romantically involved. And this is my son's father. We had a child together. This is the one who was also involved in the other extremist group that he had like tattoos on his body for doing work for them. Were there red flags? Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Did I ignore them? Unfortunately, yes.
So it's in that time though, because you were trying to organize things, I'm guessing that put you in touch with some of the people that were kind of in charge of things like the shot callers, basically.
Yeah. I don't remember their names exactly, but yeah, like their president.
I don't want any names. I don't want anybody like being like, take my name out your video, crazy liberal guy. Would it be like a fair presumption to say that kind of you understand a lot of their viewpoints, or you got to know them reasonably well based on, what you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I definitely saw a wide range of people.
The reason that I'm asking about mentality is to kind of establish that you kind of understand from a higher level than the average like grunt that would join this type. Grunt is, I don't have a better word for it. So as we had discussed, North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson has praised Adolf Hitler's leadership and vision and described himself as a black Nazi, going so far as to state that he wished that slavery would come back. And this kind of reminds me a little bit of Dave Chappelle's skit where he plays the blind black Klansman, and his Klan buddies are just kind of like, I mean, he believes, so why not?
Right.
In your opinion, having been around this as both as a youth and as like a young adult, knowing what you know, like presuming that none of these people's attitudes have ever changed and it's a monolithic entity, this like the KKK and neo-Nazis and whatnot, do you think that they could ever accept somebody like Mark Robinson, a black guy, even if it's just because of his current role in politics?
No.
Presuming that he held on to it. You don't think he could ever be accepted?
No. And I'll say it because I think a lot of people who are neo-Nazis and possibly racist just see him as a grifter and as a tool. I think that him propping up racist ideas is just causing people to want to use him more. And they're going to. But he's never going to be accepted by them.
What do you think white supremacists that hear this guy talking, what do you think is going through their mind?
So, speaking from the perspective of a white person in an extremist hate group, which I'm not currently, but I was part of. So from like their perspective, I think that they would accept him. They accept him as far as they can tokenize him and use him to push their agenda. So kind of like, see, we're not racist. We like this black guy right here.
Mhm.
I feel like that would kind of be how they would present that. Like they welcome him with open arms because it proves their narrative. It's like evidence to support their narrative. And then but at the end of the day, the leopards are going to eat his face just like they've done everyone else's.
Yeah.
So
So he's
now,
kind of like a useful tool.
absolutely, just it's an unfortunate reality with these white supremacists. Now, like for myself and like my own opinion of him, like whether or not he is, if there's such thing as a black white supremacist or a black Nazi, I, as a white person, cannot speak for what makes somebody a black anything because I'm not in the black community. And I think the black community would be the qualified experts to speak on that one specifically. However, my own experiences from deconstructing my own internalized white supremacy, as well as um, spending more time in non-white spaces, I have heard that the Black community use terms that not all skin folk are kinfolk.
Now, I'm obviously not black. And it would be fucking stupid of me to try and interpret this from any perspective other than that of a white guy. So I reached out to my friend Doug from Political Drain, another YouTube that you should be following.
Are you familiar with the like the comments that he's made and like the news story that just broke?
Yeah, I did my video on it yesterday. I put it up I put it up
Oh,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
As a black man, I can tell you that this is not new. We have words for guys like this. But for the most part, it's internalized self-hatred, racism, white supremacy, right? So when you hear a guy say, man, I wish, I was a Nazi or I'm a black Nazi, it's because they're so far gone and so believe that they so believe that the people around them, the community they grew up in, or if not in that community, the community that they saw on TV and wish they could have been a part of, is so not like them that Hitler would see him as one of the white people, as one of the good ones.
How do you imagine that like this is being received by people who are actually like white supremacists?
They laugh at it, I'm sure, as long as he helps their cause. And when he's no longer useful, he can go back home, or they don't really care what he could do, whatever. They don't really care about that at all because they're white supremacists.
Like a useful tool, kind of.
He's a useful tool. They're happy to
Yeah.
use him as long as he can help their cause. And then when he can't, he can get buried or whatever it is that black people need to do in their mind.
So basically, this tracks with my own experiences in punching neo-Nazi skinheads. If someone as openly racist as a neo-Nazi ever accepts a non-white person, it's a strategic convenience. No matter how successful that person may be, they're a means to an end. They're a tool to be weaponized. Considering how most neo-Nazis that I've ever met or been aware of are from lower class and middle class working families, they tend to look at affluent black people and other people of color as having somehow gamed the system, and that tends to only reinforce their views that they've somehow been replaced, which is why the Great Replacement theory in the alt-right resonates with so many disaffected poor white people. That's why it just boggles my mind that so many lower and middle class Americans think that they identify with Donald Trump, a real estate mogul and celebrity game show host. The dude is the epitome of the so-called coastal elite. This guy doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself, and considering how many ultra-wealthy people exploit the average American worker, it's no surprise at all that Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about any of his supporters until it's time to ask them for money, which he probably uses to pay down some of his massive legal debt and all the fines that he's accrued from being found guilty, culpable, or otherwise liable. So yeah, Mark Robinson can praise Hitler all he wants, and Mark Robinson can claim to be a black Nazi all he wants. He has the right to say dumb shit just like anybody else, but it displays a profound lack of awareness and quite possibly self-hatred because, make no mistake about it, during World War II, if the American Nazi Party and the German-American Bund and the Friends of New Germany had come to power, especially if America had been on the losing side of the war, like in The Man in the High Castle. Mark Robinson would have ended up in a death camp with a lot of other people, me included. For the Sons of Liberty, I'm Admin Tim, and I am thankful for all of the many people who watch our video content on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and other social media outlets where we link our videos. If you like our video content, we'd definitely appreciate it if you'd follow or subscribe, like the video, and get notifications. You can help us extend our reach by sharing video content and other social media posts. If you want to help us beat the algorithm, please leave us a comment in the video that you're watching. You can join the Sons of Liberty on Discord, whether you're a gamer or not. You can interact with the other members of the Fam of Liberty and our page admins. There's a channel for you to make us aware of breaking news stories, and if you're a gamer, there's also a gaming channel as well. After the Rick, there's a thing called the Throatpunch. That's a list of our various social media contact information. Give us a follow there on whatever you've got. 2 claps and a Rick. Punch Nazis in the face! Woo!
And now it's time for the Throatpunch!
And for those of you seeing this video on TikTok, I said a tick-tock, a ticky, a tick to the tick-tock, you don't stop talking. Sucks having a fucking stuttering problem. Cameroon, which is Cameroon and what is now today considered to be parts of Gabon, I don't know. Cameroon, or Cameroon and what's now today considered to be parts of Gabon, they probably mispronounced that.